Capcom's character action masterpiece returning in the Devil Hunter edition is a glorious reminder that nobody does stylish demon slaughtering quite like the Devil May Cry team. Packing the entire original adventure alongside every single piece of deluxe content, alternate costumes, and extra Devil Breaker arms into one slick package running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second is pure arcade heaven. You're switching between 3 distinct playstyles, from Nero's rocket-powered robo-arm grappling and V's demonic puppet master summoning to Dante's absurdly deep weapon wheel that literally lets you fight with a split motorcycle, before jumping into the shoes of Virgil to slice through reality itself. What makes Devil May Cry 5 so endlessly replayable is its refusal to take itself too seriously while simultaneously offering one of the deepest combo systems in video game history. One minute, Dante is doing a Michael Jackson hat dance in a burning city street, and the next you're stringing together a 50-hit SSS rank air combo that makes you feel like an absolute gaming deity. Having access to goofy bonus weapons like the Mega Buster right alongside heavy metal battle tracks makes the whole campaign feel like a giant chaotic party. Whether you're running through the gauntlets of the Bloody Palace or just messing around in the practice void testing new juggle setups, it delivers an intoxicating rush of pure gameplay style that never gets old even after your 100th playthrough.
The real climb is just about to start.
Supergiant Games broke their legendary internal rule against making direct sequels, and the end result proves they absolutely knew what they were doing with Hades 2. Instead of escaping the underworld as Zagreus, you're playing as his witchy sister Melano, diving straight down into hell and surprisingly up onto the surface to destroy Kronos, the literal titan of time. The core gameplay is somehow even more addictive than before, replacing Zagreus' raw, aggressive swordplay with a much darker spellcasting magic system that rewards clever positioning and channelable Omega attacks. You're tossing lunar hexes, weaving around screen-clearing boss mechanics, and stacking Olympian boons that turn every single escape attempt into a wildly chaotic science experiment. What really makes this sequel shine, though, is the sheer personality dripping out of every conversation in the hub area. Dying after a 40-minute run should be deeply infuriating, but waking back up at home just means getting teased by rival warriors, chatting with your ghost mentor Hecate, or feeding treats to a giant sleepy frog. The soundtrack by Darren Korb hits harder than ever, blending ancient mythic instruments with heavy guitar riffs that elevate every major boss encounter into a massive adrenaline rush. It takes everything that made the original game an instant classic and doubles down on mechanical depth, brilliant character writing, and pure style. Supergiant managed to capture lightning in a bottle twice, proving that dying repeatedly in the depths of hell is still unbelievably fun.
Origins is marching on to Nintendo Switch 2.
When Omega Force announced they were taking a step back to rethink Three Kingdoms Warfare, a lot of longtime fans naturally wondered if the button-mashing formula was finally getting a real tune-up. Dynasty Warriors Origins answers that question by stripping away the bloated rosters of 90 different generals and giving us a focused cinematic narrative seen through the eyes of a single amnesiac wanderer. Instead of just mindlessly shredding through thousands of brain-dead peons while ignoring the mini-map, you're actually managing actual battlefield strategy now. Armies crash together with up to 10,000 soldiers rendered on-screen simultaneously, forming massive frontline clashes where tactical pushes and issuing orders to your troops genuinely matter. The combat feels weightier, parrying takes actual timing, and swapping to ally officers mid-fight keeps the momentum ridiculously high. You're no longer a monster strolling through a field of paper cutouts, you are a decisive commander trying to turn the tide of legendary historic clashes like the Yellow Turban Rebellion and the Battle of Red Cliffs. It strikes a surprising sweet spot between classical tactical action and the absurd power fantasy we have loved for 2 decades. Sure, you're still wiping out entire platoons with flashy Muso attacks, but now those troops actually fight back with coordinated spear formations and terrifying cavalry charges. It breathes genuine life into a franchise that desperately needed to remember why marching onto an epic ancient battlefield was so captivating in the first place. Taking the lore-heavy backstory from Tears of the Kingdom and turning it into a full-scale battlefield spectacle is a total dream move for Muso fans. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment drops players directly into the historic imprisoning war, letting you command King Rauru, Princess Zelda, and the original Ancient Sages as they fight off Ganondorf's overwhelming demonic hordes. The core thrill comes from how effortlessly the developers integrated Tears of the Kingdom mechanics right into high-speed combat. You're not just hacking away with elemental swords, you're deploying Zonai flamethrowers, launching beam emitters into massive groups of bokoblins, and triggering ancient secret stone powers to clear out entire battlefields in seconds. Controlling Rauru feels absurdly satisfying as he channels pure light magic, while Zelda commands time-bending abilities that turn terrifying enemy rushes into easy target practice. The game captures the sheer desperation of a kingdom fighting a powerful threat, but balances that dark storyline with pure, joyful crowd control chaos. There is something endlessly hilarious about strapping a rocket to a Zonai construct, launching it into a swarm of moblin captains, and watching the chaos unfold while juggling 3 other objectives across the map. It expands the lore in ways mainline Zelda games never quite have time for, delivering a thrilling prequel experience that treats every major character like an absolute powerhouse. It is loud, flashy, and utterly packed with fan service for anyone who spent hundreds of hours exploring ancient Hyrule. Platinum Games took pretty much every wild action game trope they knew, tossed them into a futuristic blender, and somehow handed us one of the absolute coolest original combat systems in modern history with Astral Chain. Instead of handing you a sword and calling it a day, the game forces you to play as a futuristic cop tied via a literal glowing tether to an alien creature called a Legion. Controlling 2 separate entities at the exact same time sounds like a recipe for immediate hand cramps. But once your brain clicks with the rhythm, you're pulling off incredible stunts like wrapping chains around charging beasts to trip them flat on their faces or flinging your legion into oncoming airborne threats like a lethal toy. Between the high-octane battles, you're actually doing legitimate detective work, investigating crime scenes, listening in on shady conversations, and yes, rescuing stray cats hidden across the neon-drenched, futuristic megacity. The aesthetic drips with classic 90s anime energy, filled with glowing holographic displays, brooding officers, and a banging electronic synth soundtrack that turns every single boss fight into an absolute rave. Sure, the quiet investigation sections can slow things down, and managing your camera while juggling dual movement takes a minute to master, but when everything syncs up, you feel like an unstoppable sci-fi superhero. It remains a masterclass in creative combat design that proves Platinum Games is still unrivaled when it comes to delivering pure, insanely inventive action spectacle. Mixing the fast-paced combat of an action roguelite with the wholesome, relaxed town-building vibes of Animal Crossing sounds like a bizarre genre mashup on paper, but Linked Banner of the Spark pulls it off with tons of genuine charm. Set in a colorful future overrun by hostile rogue machines. You spend half your time smashing through action-packed hack-and-slash missions alongside cute rescued robot companions called Unibots. Armed with a grappling hook gadget that lets you sling enemies directly into each other in a wide array of customizable weapon classes, combat feels punchy, bright, and surprisingly fast. Once you wrap up a mission, you take all those collected robot parts and scrap back home to expand a thriving town sanctuary. Suddenly, the game shifts gears, letting you build houses, harvest crops, go fishing, and hang out with your growing community of mechanical buddies. Upgrading your town actually feeds directly back into your combat strength, unlocking new weapon mods, passive elemental perks, and special abilities to take into your next battle. The gameplay of smashing killer bots for 10 minutes and then casually designing a garden with your friends creates a bizarrely cozy rhythm that keeps you hooked. While combat hitboxes can occasionally feel a bit loose and the online setup takes a minute to get used to, the overall gameplay is insanely charming, proving that saving the world and building a peaceful home can easily go hand in hand. Shifting the apocalyptic hack-and-slash franchise into a top-down isometric perspective might sound like a massive gamble, But Darksiders Genesis turns out to be one of the most entertaining spin-offs in recent memory. Airship Syndicate stepped up to deliver a prequel story that finally introduces Strife, the quick-witted, gun-toting horseman of the apocalypse, teaming him up alongside his stoic, sword-wielding brother War. The real magic here lies in the hilarious buddy cop dynamic between the two brothers. War takes every apocalyptic threat with grim, deadly seriousness, while Strife constantly cracks jokes and pokes fun at his brother's dramatic brooding. Combat lets you swap between both characters on the fly or play cooperative multiplayer with a friend, switching from War's heavy melee combos and ground slams to Strife's dual pistol twin stick shooting style in a fraction of a second. The level design rewards careful exploration, stuffing dungeons full of clever platforming puzzles, hidden chests, and boss fights that force you to combine both horsemen's unique gadgets to survive. Customization gets a huge boost from the creature core tree, letting you slaughter demonic champions and socket their souls into a massive grid to power up your stats and unlock wild passive elemental abilities. It manages to capture the energetic soul of classic arcade brawlers while retaining the apocalyptic comic book art style fans love, proving this legendary series can completely thrive from a brand new camera angle.
The price of freedom is steep.
There is something almost cruel about how Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII forces you to fall in love with Zack Fair when you already know exactly how his story ends. As a prequel to one of the most iconic role-playing games in history, it takes a character who was originally just a vague ghost in Cloud's memory and turns him into the absolute heart and soul of the whole Midgar era. The combat is fast, energetic, and notoriously eccentric thanks to the Digital Mind Wave system, a literal spinning slot machine in the corner of your screen that pauses mid-battle to give you random invincibility, limit breaks, or level ups based on Zack's emotional memories. Winning a boss fight because 3 picture slots align like a lucky casino jackpot sounds bizarre on paper, but in practice, it gives combat an unpredictable rhythm that keeps you hooked. Slashing through Shinra soldiers, doing endless push-ups, and wielding the iconic Buster Sword before it ever reached Cloud's back makes every mission feel surprisingly personal. The updated Reunion release cleaned up the visuals and voice dialogue, making Zack's cheerful puppy dog optimism shine brighter than ever right before the narrative emotional truck hits you square in the chest. You go from chuckling at his legendary line about being from Gongaga to holding back tears during the inevitable final stand. It remains an unforgettable emotional roller coaster that proves why Zack Fair is still one of the absolute best protagonists Square Enix ever created.
Travis Touchdown. I'm a pretty seasoned freelance assassin.
Travis Touchdown returning for one final absurd rodeo is about as unhinged, hilarious, and utterly Suda51 as video games can possibly get. No More Heroes 3 throws Travis out of retirement and straight into an intergalactic superhero tournament. Except the alien superheroes in question are actually bloodthirsty conquerors led by a spoiled alien prince named FU. To earn the right to fight your way up the rankings and slice these cosmic weirdos in half with your beam katana, you're forced to run around the city doing mundane odd jobs like mowing overgrown lawns, catching escaped alien pets, and physically unclogging public toilets with a plunger. The stark contrast between graphic ultraviolence and domestic chores is pure comedy, and it gives the entire adventure a bizarre, charming rhythm you will not find anywhere else in the industry. Combat feels sharper and faster than ever, letting you charge up your katana, execute wrestling suplexes, and trigger absurd transformations that turn Travis into a full-blown armored mecha pilot. The open world zones might look a little sparse and budget-starved at times, but the game compensates with pure stylistic swagger, fourth wall-breaking pop culture discussions, and boss encounters that switch genres on a dime, ranging from musical chairs to retro video game parodies. It is a loud, unapologetic love letter to hardcore gaming culture that refuses to play by anyone else's rules, making Travis's final bow an absolute fever dream of pure joy.
Jump in. Let's do it!
Taking the isometric action roguelite formula from hit games and wrapping it around 4 pizza-loving mutant turtles sounds like an obvious home run, and Splintered Fate delivers on that promise with surprising muscle. When Master Splinter gets snatched up by the Foot Clan, Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo have to fight their way through sewers, rooftops, and fiery city streets on a non-stop rescue mission. Every turtle genuinely feels distinct right out of the gate, whether you're playing as Raph to land massive critical strikes, Donnie to keep enemies at bay with long-range staff combos, Leo for swift parries, or Mikey to bounce between enemies like a caffeinated pinball. As you push through each run, you stack elemental artifacts, dragon powers, and ninja scroll upgrades that turn basic attack strings into screen-clearing spectacles filled with toxic ooze and crackling lightning bolts. Dying just means waking back up at the lair, spending your collected resources on permanent health and damage buffs, and jumping straight back into the fray with better gear. What elevates it even further is the smooth cooperative multiplayer, making it feel like a modern evolution of classic arcade beat-em-ups where coordinating special moves with your squad is pure chaos. The story is simple, but the snappy combat, vibrant comic book visual style, and addictive momentum keep you coming back for just one more run long past bedtime. It is an absolute blast for TMNT fans.
Of course, we're talking about Diablo 3, the dark fantasy adventure that
looting dungeons and watching millions of glowing numbers explode across your screen never gets old, and Diablo 3 Eternal Collection remains the undisputed king of satisfying action RPG comfort food, packing the base game, the Reaper of Souls expansion, and the Necromancer packed together. This package gives you 7 unique classes that turn demonic armies into a pile of red slush within seconds. Whether you're summoning an army of skeletons as a Necromancer, firing off a continuous stream of laser beams as a wizard, or spinning around like a lethal lawnmower as a barbarian, the core gameplay mechanic hits your brain's dopamine receptors with terrifying efficiency. You enter a rift, obliterate thousands of hellish creatures, collect shining orange legendary gear, swap out your armor stats, and immediately do it all over again on a higher difficulty. What makes this specific collection so iconic is how brilliantly the controller layout was adapted for direct character movement, making dodge rolls feel natural and combat encounters feel far more active than clicking a mouse. Couch co-op is an absolute dream here too, letting you sit on the sofa with friends while arguing over who gets to keep the shiny new pair of demonic boots that just dropped off a giant boss monster. The story is cheesy high fantasy, but nobody plays Diablo for deep poetry. You play it to turn your screen into a glorious fireworks display of pure destruction and endless treasure. Slashing through a neon-soaked room while wearing a silk bathrobe and listening to your Hitman cassette tape might sound like a bizarre weekend plan, but Katana Zero turns it into pure action art. ASCIIsoft takes the high-stakes instant death design of frantic room clearers and layers it with a precognitive time-slowing drug called Chronos. Every failed attempt in a level is just your amnesiac samurai running a tactical simulation inside his own brain. Dying 20 times in 10 seconds is technically just a brilliant planning phase before you execute the perfect bloody run. Beyond the deflectable bullets, thrown lamps, and razor-sharp parries, the game features one of the most clever dialogue systems ever put into an action platformer. You can actively interrupt chatterboxes mid-sentence if you lack the patience for their villainous monologues, which usually pisses off your therapist handler to an amusing degree. Between your mandatory psychiatric sessions, shady contract hits, and mysterious midnight conversations with a little girl living next door, the narrative builds a surprisingly dark psychological thriller that hooks you deep. The dripping synthwave soundtrack kicks in the second you pop your headphones on, making every frame of pixelated gore feel like a feverish cyberpunk anime sequence. It masterfully mixes mechanical precision, dark humor, and genuine storytelling flair, proving that a sword-wielding assassin in sleepwear can effortlessly carry one of the absolute best indie action experiences of the modern gaming era. Dropping you into a hauntingly quiet post-apocalyptic world with zero dialogue or text tutorials is a bold move, but Hyper Light Drifter relies entirely on atmosphere, environmental clues, and sheer mechanical brilliance to tell its story. Created by Heart Machine, you control a nameless drifter suffering from a mysterious terminal illness, coughing up blood between intense combat encounters as you explore the crumbling ruins of a fallen civilization. The combat is lightning fast and mercilessly demanding, requiring you to master a multi-directional dash, a energetic light sword, and an array of long-range firearms that only reload when you land risky melee strikes on aggressive enemies. That risk-reward mechanic forces you to stay dangerously close to terrifying monster swarms rather than playing it safe from afar. Trying to chain consecutive dashes across perilous pit traps while dodging laser beams will test your thumb dexterity to its absolute limit. Yet landing a flawless room clear feels undeniably transcendent. The gorgeous neon pixel art palette and melancholic synth soundtrack by Disasterpiece give every forgotten temple and frozen mountain peak a surreal, dreamy vibe that stays stuck in your head long after you put down the controller. It never holds your hand, refusing to explain its cryptic lore through boring exposition, but that mystery makes uncovering hidden secrets feel like a genuine achievement. Heart Machine crafted a gorgeous, challenging masterpiece that turns quiet atmospheric exploration and hyper-twitch combat into an unforgettable retro action adventure.
An armed and dangerous criminal has been spotted in the area.
First-person platforming usually gives action gamers immediate flashbacks to clumsy jumping physics and missed ledges, but Ghostrunner turns high-speed momentum into absolute perfection. You play as Jack, a cybernetic ninja sprinting up the sprawling dystopian megastructure of Dharma Tower to overthrow a tyrannical ruler known as the Keymaster. The entire game operates on a brutal one-hit kill rule. A single stray bullet will instantly end your life, but a single swing of your energy sword will cleanly slice any cybernetic grunt in half. To survive the absurd hail of gunfire, you are constantly wall-running, grappling across massive industrial abysses, and using a mid-air slow motion ability called Sensory Boost to dodge incoming projectiles like Neo in the Matrix. Dying 50 times on a single combat arena sounds like a recipe for throwing your controller through the wall, but instantaneous load times keep you respawning so fast that your brain barely has time to register failure. Every encounter becomes an adrenaline-fueled puzzle where you memorize enemy placement, map out your parkour route, and execute a flawless dance of lethal sword swings. Supported by a pounding electronic soundtrack from Daniel Deluxe that gets your heart racing, climbing Dharma Tower feels less like playing a traditional action shooter and more like conducting a hyper-aggressive synthwave symphony. It demands total focus and lightning-fast reflexes, rewarding your endless deaths with the unmatched satisfaction of becoming a true high-speed cybernetic killer. Stepping into the wildly chaotic digital battlegrounds of the virtual world of Seraph, Fate Extella Link takes the Anime Musou framework and cranks the speed dial all the way to maximum. As a master-controlling legendary historical figures summoned as heroic spirits, you spend your time wiping out thousands of digital aggressors across sprawling sector maps. The star of the show is the expanded roster of legendary servants, introducing iconic warriors like King Charlemagne alongside returning fan favorites like Nero Claudius and Tamamo no Mae. What makes combat feel far punchier than its predecessor is the revamped skill system, allowing you to instantly trigger powerful active skills mid-combo on the fly without awkward pauses. You're constantly dashing between map sectors, defending key strongholds, and building up your drive gauge to unleash screen-nuking noble phantasms that look like they were pulled straight out of a high-budget anime fight scene. The tactical layer requires you to manage battlefield objectives under tight time limits, forcing you to prioritize high-value enemy commanders before your base defenses crumble. Outside of battle, hanging out in your floating base lets you chat with your servants, customize their skill loadouts, and dress them up in utterly ridiculous alternate costumes. It embraces its over-the-top, high-concept anime absurdity with complete confidence, serving up visual spectacle, silky smooth frame rates, and endless horde-clearing action that keeps Fate fans coming back for just one more energetic arena battle round.
Okay everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you liked that video, please leave a like and subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to get notified when we release new content. We hope to see you in the next video.